good afternoon. I'm aware that I'm all that stands between you and your lunch, so I'll make this as interesting as possible. What I want to talk to you about today is organizational change. And most importantly, how if you let go and allow your talented tech teams to get on with it, you can drive real and sustained commercial success in your organization. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how things used to be done and what we had to do in order to change that. And I'll leave you with a few tips about how, if you're looking at the same kind of issues that we were at the Financial Times, you can do similar sorts of things in your organization. But I'm going to start by talking to you about a whale. 11 years ago, I was an online journalist, and I was working in a major international broadcast news organization. And one day, a whale swam up the River Thames in London. And people enjoyed watching it, frolicking in the waters outside the Houses of Parliament. Now, at the time, we had live stats in our newsroom, and I could tell that this story was going crazy. There were people all around the world, and particularly in the UK, who were massively excited about the whale and the fate of it and what was going to happen. And that afternoon, I went down to the main afternoon planning meeting in the main broadcast newsroom, and the whale wasn't even on the agenda. That despite the fact there was a plan to rescue this whale the following day and lift it out of the River Thames. So, consequently, 24 hours later, when that whale was lifted out of the Thames and placed on a barge, our competitor had aerial footage from a helicopter showing the rescue, and our organization had none, because at the time, the senior managers considered, although interesting, not real news. Now, if you roll forward 11 years later, all successful newsrooms around the country are informed by data. We're using data all the time to understand where we should put our resources. It's not a replacement for news judgment. News judgment is still phenomenally important, but it's also really important to understand your audience and their needs and what they're interested in. That said, that poor unfortunate whale may still not make the pages of the Financial Times. After all, it wasn't a massively business-led story. What I'm going to talk to you about today is how you change the mindset of companies. Organizations, even those like us that have built their success on intuition and a clear command and control structure, can build successful digital products by letting go. So what's changed? At the Financial Times, we've built our success on employing people with fantastic instinct who can act on hunches. And in a world where there wasn't any data, that was phenomenally important. And in fact, in 2017, it's still massively important to hire great people with fantastic ideas. You don't stand a chance of being able to transform if you don't have people who can come up with good ideas. But whilst that's a necessary component of digital success, unfortunately, it's not sufficient. You really have to understand the customer problem that you're trying to solve. You have to come up with hypotheses that you can test with real customers. And most importantly, you have to get the data to check if your hypotheses were correct or not. Now, in the past, at the Financial Times, when we were coming up with web redesign products and projects, senior management would come up with lists of features and functionality that they would like to see. Those would be written down solemnly, handed over to engineers to build, and they'd go off and build them, often for several years. Then they'd be released to an unsuspecting audience to little or sometimes no commercial gain. Now, after going around that cycle a few times, it was absolutely time for us to do things differently at the Financial Times. Now, before I go into what we did in our own web redesign product, I want to talk to you about the totemic metric that we have at the Financial Times, and that's all based around engagement. It's absolutely essential to us that we understand how engaged our customers are, and we do that by using a metric which we call RFV. RFV stands for recency, frequency, and volume. And what we're looking at is, for every single customer, when did they last come to our site? We're looking at frequency. We're looking at how often they come in any given time period. And we're also looking at volume. We're looking at how often those customers, how much content those customers read when they come to our site. That formula is then rolled up into a score. and every single one of our paying subscribers and all the people that we know about have an individual RFV score. And what we know that is if a customer has an RFV score of the remarkably precise 18.2 or above, that they're more likely to take a trial. They're more likely to move from being a trial to a subscriber. And if they become a subscriber, they are more likely to retain as a subscriber if they're engaged in our content. And the entire company, from the journalists working in the newsroom to our B2B sales team, through to our B2C marketing team, and right the way through to my team in product and engineering, are tasked with increasing the number of engaged users that we have. Because we know that if we can increase the number of engaged users that we have, that we can put real money on our bottom line. So when it came to redesigning our web product, engagement was absolutely the key metric that we were looking at. We were also looking at Net Promoter Score. We wanted to understand how satisfied our customers were with the experience. We also wanted to know about speed. We wanted to know how fast our website was. And I'm going to talk to you in detail about that and why that was so important to us. Ad viewability was also important. We needed to make sure that we were monetizing our customers via advertising. And conversion was also important. We wanted to make sure that the product that we were building had the capacity to convert paying customers at the same rate as the old one. So speed. Once we had decided what those metrics were that we wanted the team to focus on, it was absolutely time for the senior management team to step back and allow the team to decide what features and functionality they wanted to focus on in order to deliver on those metrics that I've just explained to you. And the most important one that they focused on first was speed. But because they are a fantastically data-driven team, they didn't just want to get the website faster and hope things got better. They wanted to absolutely ensure that the investment we were making in making the website faster was worth the investment. So in order to do that, we slowed things down. What we did is we ran a multivariate test where Group A got a site that was 3 seconds faster, Group B got a site that was 2 seconds faster, 1 second faster, and so on. And by doing that, we were able to quantify the impact on engagement of having a faster website. And what we discovered is that if you could increase the speed by just 1 second, that would increase engagement by 5%. Now, as I've said, engagement puts money on our bottom line. We took that 5% and looked at what it would mean for us in terms of revenue. And because it meant that we would gain more subscribers, and it meant that customers would read more content and therefore see more advertising, an increase of speed of 1 second would put 5% on engagement and millions of pounds on our bottom line. So that gave the team phenomenal confidence that they were investing their resources in the right place. And consequently, we now have one of the fastest websites in our class. On a desktop, you'll be reading content within 1 second, and on a mobile, you'll be reading content within 2 seconds. We are the fastest website in our competitive set. No other publisher is as fast as the Financial Times. And that was an initiative that was entirely driven by the team who decided that that's what we needed to work on. They also had a hunch that personalization would be important, that if customers got a personalized experience, that they would become more engaged. So they built a feature called MyFT, and very simply what that allows you to do is tell us some information on the companies that you're interested in, the topics that you're interested in, and we will bring you content on that topic. And now we have 25% of our customers signed up to MyFT. But so what? We need to understand, is that driving the metrics that we really care about? So we looked at those customers, and they were much, much more engaged than their counterparts that weren't using MyFT. But that's not enough, actually, because correlation is not causation. We wanted to know if by involving themselves in MyFT, that their engagement would go up. And what we discovered is the mere act of doing that by using a control test would increase engagement by 35%. Again, increasing engagement puts money on our bottom line, so the team knew that they were on the right track. We also wanted a mobile-optimized site. Now, that is a total no-brainer in 2016 to have a mobile-optimized site. But again, wanted to know what it was doing for us in terms of our important metrics. And what we discovered was that customers on the mobile site were reading twice as much content as customers who weren't. If customers read more content, that's moving the V component of RFV. Engagement is going up, more money on our bottom line. Again, the team was on the right track. All the time, we were looking at customer satisfaction. We didn't just want to build a site that our customers that the data was looking good, but our customers were unhappy. So we were talking to customers all the time. We had weekly customer sessions where they were coming into the Financial Times to talk to us, but we were also getting verbatim reports via forms on our website. And we were systematically tackling the pain points. They were telling us they didn't like the navigation on the new site, they didn't find it easy to read, and they were telling us about the features on the old site that they valued that we hadn't rebuilt. By tackling those pain points, we were able to get customer satisfaction going up and to the right. Again, massively important, and we reaped those rewards when we put 100% of our customers on that site, because it was tremendously smooth. Whilst we had some complaints and some people did opt out, by and large, it was phenomenally successful, but also we are now reaping the rewards of those engagement gains that we were seeing in the beta phase of the trial. So I'm going to leave you with 3 tips for success. We work in a lean way at the Financial Times. That means that we're getting rough and ready products out in front of our teams, out in front of our customers. And that felt risky because we've got people who are paying us a considerable sum of money for their subscription, and we were giving them a rough and ready experience. However, actually, that was de-risking us in the long term, because by running it as a beta, when we finally put a full 100% of our cohort on the site, we could be really confident that it would work. So what you need to do, work out what numbers you're trying to move. Find out what success looks like. If you don't know that, don't start. Don't waste your money. You won't make things better, and there is a chance that you will make things slightly worse. Secondly, hire great people. I am phenomenally lucky at the FT to have good people working for us. You cannot empower a poorly performing team. So make sure that you're really, really tough on the people you hire, and make sure that you're going to be able to trust them with your most valuable asset. And then step back and let them get on with it. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't mean you get to disappear to the Caribbean and come back when they're done. Your job is to hold them to account for moving those metrics that you set for them at the beginning, and back them back on course when they disappear down a rabbit hole. And if you can do all 3 of those equally important things, then you will be set up for success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cait. So, when you started this whole organizational change, how did those people from the old world, those creative guys who may be more forced or incentivized by hierarchy, how did you make them buy into the process?
You really have to show by doing. The lean process applies equally to your teams and your organization as it does to showing things to your customers. Whilst it can feel incredibly uncomfortable letting go, it means you have to work even more closely with your partners across the business than you did before. But also, you release value very quickly. If you start to build things in real code and show them to customers, then it's less of a theoretical conversation. You're seeing what the change looks like very, very quickly. And you're getting data back so that you can have conversations that are led by data, not as would have happened in the past about my opinion versus your opinion. Because in a command and control structure, the most senior opinion will always win. But if you're asking questions, setting your hypotheses, and getting data back from your customers, then it's a conversation about real data.
So you were creating minimal viable products, and then you were sharing them with your customers, getting immediate feedback, and so you kind of increased this conversational touch points with the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and now if you look back into this whole process, what were things that what are the things that you might be doing differently this time?
It's a really good question, and on a project that long, you will make mistakes along the way. I think where we made mistakes, it was where we saw little fires burning in the corner and didn't deal with them in a timely fashion. And largely, all of those things come down to communication between yourself and other parts of the organization. If you're talking to an ad sales guy who is incentivized and bonused on making sales, and you're changing that ad model, which we were, that can be incredibly uncomfortable. And you need to have a very, very open dialogue about what it is that you want to do, defining what success looks like, and also understanding people's comfort level on how much of a risk that they're willing to take. On a big and successful website like the Financial Times, you can put a small percentage of people on your new experience and get a good result very, very quickly. But I think in all of these things, I think it is where they can fall down is if you don't have that good and open communication between people across the business.
Would that also affect your leadership style, so how you got involved into this project?
Yeah, I think it's a massive change, actually. I think understanding your part and where you can add value and understanding when you need to get involved and when you need to step back and let the team get on with it. It was really interesting to hear some of the speakers today talking about humility in leadership and understanding where your limits lie. It's a definite change for people, and it's a different job. And you can feel very, very comfortable talking about moving pixels around, and whether it should be blue or whether it should be pink. That's a really, really comfy and easy space to be in. Harder space to be in is to allow people to get on with it and let the data do the talking. And getting that balance right is something that we've had to work on really hard.